It's now time for Party Chat Sports.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Welcome back, everybody, to Party Chat Sports. I'm Caleb Gill, Dillon Schroeder alongside me today. Hopefully, Drew Nelson will be joining us at some point throughout the episode. Cam is unavailable to join us for this evening, but we still got playoff football to talk about. You start the season with 32 teams. Then you get to the playoffs. There's 14 remaining. You start breaking it down. You go 14, then 8, 4, and now there are 2 left in the NFL season. We have our AFC champion, we have our NFC champion, and we're less than 2 weeks away from the last football game of the season, the Super Bowl, the pinnacle of the NFL, coming up in about 2 weeks. How did we get here? Well, let's start with that AFC championship game, where we found out that the whole Super Bowl logo, the purple, the red, that conspiracy officially died with the Ravens losing 17-10.
Yeah, and maybe it's like since there's 2 red teams, you can't have a Super Bowl logo that's just one color, so they just came up with the second place of I don't know. I don't know how it mathed out this time. There's no purple we can grab. So
conspiracy's dead.
Yeah, it's dead. But yeah, 17-10. Chiefs win in Baltimore. They had the blueprint on the Ravens, how to beat them. And yeah, the Chiefs, I don't know how they've done it again. We can't keep letting them get away with this, but the NFL once again has done it in a year where of all the years they should not be here. And when you got Patrick Mahomes under center, it just things happen. They win, and it was a good game. Ravens, I mean, they had it. They really did. Miscues, fumbling the ball as you're about to cross the goal line, not capitalizing deep in their territory. Lamar throwing it into triple coverage after Isaiah likely throws up the "I'm open" hand. Yeah, just throwing points off the board there, and you can't do that with Patrick Mahomes, even though you are at home in the AFC Championship game. Just Ravens did not play. It felt like that Ravens team that everyone was scared of. It looked like that Ravens team that got swept by the Steelers twice, losing both of those games 17-10. Not to be a coincidence or anything. But maybe the Steelers had the blueprint. Make the Ravens beat themselves, I guess, was the conclusion. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs did it again. It's just unbelievable the greatness that we're witnessing. If we want to just put that out there, of what Patrick Mahomes has been able to accomplish. 7 straight AFC championships. This is going to be his 4th Super Bowl. He's 2-1 in his prior 3. If I think I have that stat correct, I could be off slightly, but insane. Regardless of what the stat is, absolutely
been to
insane.
4 Super Bowls in 5 years.
Yeah, and he's young.
28.
Brady did that early in his career too. We'll see. We always talked about that Mahomes was the most talented quarterback on the field, but he's now putting the resume together as well. So to be the greatest of all time. But yeah, hard fought game, and we'll talk about the Super Bowl matchup itself in this episode as well, I'm assuming. But Gil, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you started saying like the blueprint, like the Chiefs had the blueprint, and I wanted to correct you, and then you finally said the blueprint was to let the Ravens beat themselves. That's what happened. The Ravens, what was their bread and butter this year? Running the ball. They had 8 run plays called They didn't run the ball. It's not like they were getting blown out. They only lost by a touchdown. Lamar was getting pressure the entire game. He didn't play his greatest, but it's not like it was entirely his fault that they lost. It was the Ravens as a whole. This was a team loss for the Ravens, from coaching to play calling to execution. I mean, play calling is coaching, but it was just an all-around team loss for the Ravens. The defense did their job for the most part. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to another Super Bowl, and they didn't even score 20 points when in the playoffs, heading into this playoffs, they were averaging 32 points per playoff game heading into this year. They only scored 17.
Yeah. It feels like the Ravens defense did their job. It really does. I mean, you held a Patrick Mahomes Chiefs team to 17 points.
And he threw 39 times. He threw 39 times.
Yeah, and he only averaged 8 yards a throw, 241 through the air. And then even on the ground, they held Pacheco to 2.8 yards a carry. I mean, that's nothing. So, yeah, the defense, they really did do their job. Obviously, Kelsey got his. He had a great game, 11 catches, 116, and a tutty.
11 targets, too.
Yeah, 11 targets. So he caught everything that was thrown his way. And, I mean, you're going to have that matchup problem. I mean, that's just what Travis Kelsey and good tight ends do. But, yeah, it really felt like I don't want to say Lamar let this team down because, like you said, it was a team loss. I think Flowers fumbles that ball going over the goal line, and everything else from that. Flowers had a really good game as well, and I think the Ravens have found their wide receiver for the future. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that drive was it was a rocky drive for Flowers where he gets them down the field and then he commits the penalty. And then he almost scores a touchdown, but he then fumbles. Like, that entire drive was just a roller coaster for the rookie.
It's kind of how his season went, too. Looking back, I mean, he had his ups, definitely, and then he had some downs, like a couple of those Steelers games where he dropped some passes. And, he kind of epitomized, if that's the right word, that his whole season on that drive there. Lamar threw the ball 37 times. He completed 20 of those passes. 272 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Again, that interception in the end zone really felt like the triple coverage, really felt like the dagger. And I was really watching that whole fourth quarter drive. I mean, he was dropping back, just holding the ball. He was trying to make something happen. And obviously the Chiefs were only blitzing 4. They were dropping 7 in coverage most of the time.
There was nowhere to throw.
The receivers got locked up, and it really showed the overall lack of depth of that Ravens, the weapons that they had. And obviously, they got hurt by injuries, and especially in the running back room. But the strength of that Chiefs secondary, you got McDuffie back there, Snead, a very strong corner as well. So they really were locking them up all game, and then especially in that fourth quarter, Lamar's just running around trying to do something. And he couldn't. Only scoring 10 points against the Chiefs is not going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. But really, you break it down, that fumble into the end zone, and then the interception in the end zone. I mean, that's points straight off the board, and you can't do that and expect to win.
Right. I mean, that's a touchdown, and they were driving. They were in field goal range, so that's 10-point swing.
Yeah.
Those two plays. And the Lamar in the pocket, like Lamar's pocket, like throwing his ability definitely improved this year. Mm-hmm. I know you're a big Lamar hater, but I think even you would say that has gotten better this year. Yeah. And it almost like to a fault where like it seems like Lamar was hearing everybody saying, or has been hearing everybody say, like, he's just a running quarterback. He can't throw. And then it's like he's only throwing and in the right spots. Like he's still moving around a lot, but why isn't he taking off the way we know Lamar can? Like, especially if his receivers are getting clamped the way they were. I expected to see him take more of those lanes that were, I mean, when you have, there's got to be somebody or a lane for you to go if nobody's open. And he just didn't seem to take those. He had 8 carries on the day. The entire run game was not there, and I cannot figure that out between Todd Monken not calling run get plays, and Lamar not taking off when he could have.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, it really felt like they strayed, like you said, from what got them there. Their running game is what was so dynamic, and then making explosive plays through the air because of how powerful your running game was. And just looking at the stats, Lamar had 3,600 yards through the air, which was a career high for him. 24 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So a good throwing season, pretty much his best since his MVP season, where he had a whole bunch of touchdowns. But yeah, what made him so dynamic? He really didn't do that in this game. He tried to be a pocket passer, which I've said many times. Lamar can't throw in general terms, but obviously he can. He's had some pretty good seasons here. Just looking down the list, and when the defense wasn't presented with the threat of his legs, and they just dropped back in coverage and everyone was locked up, there really was nothing Lamar could do. And then even at the end there, when he was scrambling, there was a couple times where even his scrambles felt like he should have gotten more out of it. Like there was one, he ran around a whole bunch and then he ended up sliding for like a 5-yard gain. This was late in the fourth quarter.
I know
it felt
exactly
like he could have just kept going outside and got another 20 yards.
Like the fact he only got 5 yards just seemed like wrong.
And whether how old is Lamar Jackson? Let's.
I mean, he was 2018, so he was the draft class
only
after
20,
Patrick.
He's only 27. I mean, he's still in his prime.
Yeah,
and maybe Ravens by design wanted him to run a lot less this year just to protect that investment. And that would make a lot of sense. But
plus, that's why they brought in Todd Monken.
Yeah,
and getting rid of Greg Roman.
When you're in the playoffs, man, you're not protecting anything. You got to let the boy play. So, yeah.
Don't change things up for the playoffs just because it's for the playoffs. Like when you're the number 1 seed, you're the number 1 seed for a reason. Especially continue to do what's been working for you, and they just veered away from that. It's irritating when teams do that in the playoffs. Like they get to the playoffs, so whatever's been working the entire playoffs, and then it's like, you know what? Let's change it. And I think, if I remember correctly, Drew kind of had that issue with the Cowboys where they were just trying to do different things. It doesn't work when you try, just because that's the tape that they've been watching the entire year, where like, oh, well, they've been watching us run the entire year. Let's pass the ball 37 times and only call 8 designed runs. They'll never expect it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think that's what he said in that.
You have to play.
You
have to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your strengths. Continue to play to them.
Yeah, and even just looking back at the Texans game, a game that they won handedly, put up 30 points against a defense that was also pretty strong, I would say, overall. In this one, Dalvin Cook had 8 carries, Gus Edwards had 10, Justice Hill had 13, and then Lamar ended up with 11 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he had some long scrambles in that game, but I mean, just look at that. And then as a team, over 200 rushing yards in that one. And they were able to dominate time of possession, dominate field position, show their will, or whatever the word.
That's the Ravens way. Why are you trying to change it for the AFC Championship game? And I'll have a question that's kind of related to this for you later on. But I think this was the Ravens' chance. Like this was, I don't know if the Ravens get another crack at this, especially with Patrick Mahomes. It's like Tom Brady. It's like the Patriots. If you get a crack at him, you better take him down while you can, because you may not get another chance. And with how loaded the AFC is in general, Joe Burrow is going to be healthy next year, so they may not even win their division next year. Like that's up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Herbert should be better with Jim Harbaugh coming. You'll have the Bills. You'll have the Dolphins. They're going to be competitive. The Texans are on the rise. The Colts, maybe. Like, this was their window. This was their chance. And they got cute. They tried doing things a different way, and they blew it.
Yeah. I mean, I think to that point, talking championship window, I think the Ravens are still okay, being that a lot of that team, I believe, is going to stay intact. I know Patrick Queen is coming up for. I don't think it's Roquan Smith. I think it's Patrick Queen
I
of
think.
their
Well, they
inside
traded for
linebacker.
Roquan, so I
Yeah, I
believe
think
after they traded, they
he's
gave him a big deal.
yeah, one of their inside linebackers coming up due, but I mean they have a lot of young pieces on that team,
Yeah,
including Lamar himself. So I don't think their championship window is closing. But again,
it
like
may.
you said, they may not even win the division next year. You got 4 good teams in the AFC North, all that are going to be. They were all in the hunt
Yeah,
this year. They're all going to be in the hunt next year. So the AFC North is going to beat up on itself again.
they all made the play. Well, 3 of the 4.
3 of
The
the 4
one
made the
that
playoffs, and the Bengals almost did. So they were all
without
4
Joe
in it.
Burrow.
Yeah, without Joe Burrow, and yeah, he's going to be back. You can't expect the Bengals to go 1-5 in division next year. So there's your team. Texans, like I've said in that video that I made a couple weeks
Make sure you
ago.
go watch that at Party Chat Sports. By the way, it's still it's still valid and makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense. Like
yeah.
it's not dated.
Yeah, no. I don't think that's going to be outdated all summer. You could watch that
Nope.
video and it's going to be relevant. But yeah, the AFC is going to be loaded, and I think the Ravens make the playoffs next year, and I think they're going to
Yeah.
be in that, and they're going to have that opportunity. But home field advantage all the way through the playoffs, number one
Yeah.
seed, first round bye, maybe not.
That's
That's to your point there. So this was the Ravens' best crack at it in years. Since they were in, I think they were in an AFC championship a couple of years ago, a handful of years ago, and they lost.
I don't know if they've been in an AFC Championship game since they
Won
the
the
Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl.
I know that they were around that time. I think they lost to the Patriots in one, or maybe they
Yeah,
just lost to the Patriots in a divisional round.
Yeah, let me look it up. Because for some reason, I think I'm mixing them up with the Jaguars. Yeah, the last time they were in the AFC Championship game was 2013, where they beat New England. So that was back in their Super Bowl run. So it was over a decade since they've been to the AFC Championship game,
It is a decade.
and they got cute. I mean, it's crazy, and that just goes to show how hard winning is in the NFL. And Drew harps on that all the time, that winning in the NFL is hard.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, you never want to waste your AFC Championship opportunities when they come. I think I remember the Steelers' last AFC Championship game would have been like 2016 or 2017, and they got mollywopped by the Patriots. I mean, it was like 30-0 type of game, and it was like,
Well,
that sucked. But
was it you or was it Drew that sent it in our chat? Like the list of it was after the Lions, but the I'll be back type, and it's all the teams that had lost in the championship games. The Jets were on there twice, 09 and 10. The Vikings in 2020. Just for our teams. The Steelers in 16 or 17. The Jaguars.
It was a sad list, that's for sure. I could scroll up and try to find it, but it's probably
That's
way
good.
up there at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of hearkened it back. What I was talking about the Packers when I was discussing this, but like the 2015 Panthers, they were up there for a couple of seasons and then they were back down. Again, I think it feels like the Ravens are going to be around for a couple of years still. I mean, I don't
They'll
think
be around, but
it's just going to be a lot harder.
It's
just going to be.
This was their best chance.
Yeah,
especially like this was supposed to be a down year for the Chiefs.
I know. Yeah, and yeah. I mean,
let's talk about them a little bit because we've spent a lot of time on the Ravens.
Yeah,
the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes. You've been saying this. We've kind of discussed it all season long. Like he's already in great territory. He's not the greatest of all time yet. People need to calm down on that because like Tom Brady had 3 separate Hall of Fame careers. But is he on the Mount Rushmore? Is he top 4, top 5 all time? I think he is. Like there was I don't remember who did the TikTok or the video, but they were going through like Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So let's play this out. So it'd be Patrick Mahomes or quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, Dan Marino.
That's a tough one. Dan Marino, and here's the thing about this whole debate, right? It's all about the eras too. Like you put Dan Marino in this era, and he probably
he's throwing
goes
for
nuts.
Like 6,000.
Like he was the most pure thrower of the football up until his time. Like he was the greatest thrower of the football of all time. But he
never won a Super Bowl.
You never won a Super Bowl. He never had that kind of success, and Mahomes has a track record that he has. So it's like, you got to take Mahomes. I mean, Marino was so talented, and it's not about what Marino isn't; it's about what Mahomes is. And I think
Right.
you have to
And
take Mahomes.
I think I said last week, like for the last decade, there was a debate on, or what I had said was Rodgers was the most talented, Brady was the greatest of all time, and now Mahomes is pretty much starting to merge those two thoughts, where he is starting to become one of the greatest of all time, and he's also the talent, or one of the most talented, if not the most talented. So, other quarterbacks, Drew Brees.
Mahomes. Yeah.
How about this one? Peyton Manning.
Uh,
See that
from a thrower of the football, Mahomes is definitely clears Peyton, but
his IQ,
IQ of the game.
Peyton's IQ. That's where like
Peyton's the highest quarterback of all time from the IQ of the game.
that's where
And
him and Brady really separate themselves. Their arm talent wasn't the greatest,
yeah,
but their
but even
IQ.
still, that single season that he had under the Broncos, greatest season of all time, and Mahomes hasn't even had a season like that yet.
We've had a 17-game season. How many years now? And nobody's
uh,
gotten.
yeah, 3 or 4, and no
And
one's come
that
even
was during.
close.
And that was during a 16-game season. Like nobody's come close.
Yeah,
But like he's already.
I would probably take Peyton Manning, but even then, the fact that you're already talking about it, and Mahomes
Exactly.
is in his 20s, that just shows how great he is.
He's not even
You
30, and you're already
you
starting.
give Mahomes the next 10 years of his career, however it plays out. If he just plays it, he's going to be the answer to all these questions. And then
Yep.
the only debate's going to be Brady or Mahomes. And
Montana. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I think he has to surpass Montana first. But if I think we're going to get to a point where those are your three.
yeah.
By the time Mahomes retires, your best three of all time are going to be Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and Patrick Mahomes, in whichever order you want to decide. And honestly,
It's crazy my boy Terry Bradshaw don't get that type of respect, but it's fine. It's
he
fine.
just gets
He won
forgotten
4
about.
Super Bowls too.
He
Yeah,
did.
it was so long ago
It was so long ago,
in a
and
forgotten era.
that's the big thing. It was a forgotten era,
And
and
he had that defense.
all the quarterbacks since then, like Elway, Montana, Aikman, like all these quarterbacks that have like thrown for a crap ton of yards and touchdowns. Like it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard
And
to.
Bradshaw sucked terrible in his like first 2 years in the league too, but
Well,
regardless. And then
so
they
did
had
Peyton
that
Manning.
yeah, and then they had that Hall of Fame draft class and the Steelers never looked back. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes is in that air. You know, if he were to retire after winning a Super Bowl 2 weeks from now, I mean, he's in that conversation. He'd be a 3-time champ at this point.
3-time Super Bowl champ. Is he already a 2-time MVP? 2 or 3-time Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the resume that's better than his resume is already better than Big Ben, Rodgers, Drew Brees. I mean, from like a playoff success standpoint, he's already passed a couple of those guys in playoff wins.
And that's the most important thing. Like your yards are cool. Like Eli Manning's got a ton of yards. Philip Rivers has a ton of yards. Matthew Stafford has a ton of yards. But like, there's 3 Super Bowls total between those 3 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what it's all
Winning,
about. And
winning is the most important.
especially in this day and age, that feels like it. Like Drew says, it's so hard to win in this day and age because of the dynamic offenses that are around the league and the defenses, and it just feels like there's great teams all over the place. It may not be the heyday that was, like, you know, you see the TikToks of all those quarterbacks from like the 2000s and the 2010s that come up that they're all gone now. There may not be that level of Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the league, but it is so hard to win. I mean, there's talent everywhere, and he continues to win every single year.
And the league is built for parity. But with the salary cap, with the way the draft structured, the league is built for parity, and yet we still have Patrick Mahomes playing an AFC Championship game every year he's been a starter.
Yeah, it's
insane.
It's just impressive. At the end of the day, that's all there is to it. You can hate on the Chiefs, hate on Taylor Swift, hate on the refs, you know, because the refs are always going to be talked about after every single game.
And there was some bad calls, no calls. Here's the thing on the refs: 1, they're human. it's going to happen. 2, they suck every game. It's just in these moments,
It gets
how
amplified.
bad they are, it gets amplified.
And at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it. The refs didn't make Zay Flowers fumble that ball. The refs didn't make Lamar throw into triple coverage, right? So there's always bigger moments that impact these games. So
even the triple coverage one, like people are saying, like there was PI. There was PI after the ball was already thrown.
That ball
like,
was picked off, and then he started to get hit, and turn sideways or whatever. He could have not touched Isaiah Likely at all, and that ball was never going to get to him. So they were crying, but that one didn't matter either.
The big thing with this is even with the greatest quarterback in the game today, not putting up a lot of points, the defense. That's what's carried them this entire season. Like everybody we spent a good chunk of time, probably about 10 minutes or so, just talking about Patrick Mahomes. But the defense has really been the key to this Kansas City Chiefs team making it to the Super Bowl. They've been phenomenal. And I think I had said earlier in the year when the Chiefs offense wasn't playing that well, that what was going to carry them, or like their defense was going to have to carry. And they have. You've touched on their secondary multiple times the last couple of weeks, and especially today. Their linebackers are playing great, like Drew Tranquil, Chris Jones up front. Like, it is such a good defense that doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, and we just talked about how the Ravens 10 points wasn't good enough. Well, the Chiefs defense was the reason they only put up 10 points. And I mean, the Chiefs defense did a really good job. Like you mentioned, they have talent all over the place. Their DBs are talented. Their linebackers are talented. Jones on the D line is an all pro. So yeah, this year, and we talk about how this is the worst Chiefs team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It might be the strongest defense that they've had in as many years. It's definitely up there. So
I think it is.
Maybe
that's just recency bias, but
yeah, and it very well could be. And I couldn't tell you some names that were on the Chiefs team 4 years ago, on that defensive side of the ball.
I think like Tyrann Mathieu was one, but that's the Honey Badger a couple of years ago.
And it was after like the Eric Berry era of the Chiefs defense. There was these new guys that were all young. Willie Gay at linebacker, that was one of them. I think so. He was a playmaker at one point, and Chris Jones was around, I believe.
He's been around for a while.
Yeah, that Chiefs defense definitely of a strength of that team, and we'll talk about it, and maybe it's a good time to transition, but the 49ers offense is going to have some difficulties handling that defense. So I don't know if you're ready to flip over to the NFC Championship game, we can certainly do so.
I think we are. We spent close to half an hour on the AFC Championship. Yeah, definitely a good time to switch over to the NFC Championship game, where the Lions got out of the gates hot, and they took smoking hot. The entire end. We do this every week, where you hate Brock Purdy, I love Brock Purdy, Drew hates Brock Purdy, Cam loves Brock Purdy. When you were hating on Brock Purdy in the chat, that's when I'm like, well, hold on. It's not like I'm watching this game. The first drive, the defense is getting carved up. This hyped up 49ers defense can't stop a nosebleed.
Yeah,
they're struggling.
Ben Johnson's schemes were tearing them apart.
Him coming back is huge.
Yeah, and that was kind of to the point of, and I may have talked about it in the chat, but I was like, do the Lions get back here? Like the Lions, like we talked as much about the Ravens not letting this opportunity go. Lions, first time in however many years, and you're winning whatever it was, 24-7 at halftime. And we'll get into the decision making, but you can't blow it. And, this is your opportunity to take down the mammoth that was the 49ers all season long.
So on that thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is what I was going to ask earlier. ESPN brought this up. I think it was First Take. Which team has a better chance of being back in this spot again? The Lions or the Ravens? I have my opinion already.
I think just initial gut reaction, it's and especially with the news that came out today that the OC is going to stay. I think the answer is the Lions. Simply,
agreed.
You don't even have to look at the team aspect. Simply look at the conferences. The NFC,
exactly.
the NFC is gutted right now. I mean, yeah, you got your Packers, your startups. Cam harps on the Vikings every other 20 minutes. You got teams like the Cowboys and the Eagles who are like good, but it does not feel
They
nearly
blow it.
like the star power that the AFC has right now. So their path to get back is going to be a heck of a lot easier than it would be for the Ravens. So just
That's kind of where I stand as
simply
well.
putting it from that aspect, I would say the Lions. From a team aspect, I think the Ravens are built a little bit better from a roster standpoint. But that's highly up for debate. You know, the Lions got a good young core on defense. A couple
Yep.
of their first round draft picks have been playing well. You got your Brian Branch in the secondary, Campbell linebacker, Aiden Hutchinson on the D line. I mean, you got a stud pretty much at every level there. And then on the offensive side of the ball, a good O line that has benefited from a lot of early draft investment. The running backs, obviously, Amon Ra, a beautiful wide receiver one after picking him in like the third round or whatever it was.
He's finally getting some good recognition.
Yeah, and then the only not a problem, but just and the Lions fans are torn on this too. Is if Jared Goff is your guy, he obviously has flashes where he shows that he is, and then he'll have some games where he doesn't look so good. I mean, but that you can say that for just about every quarterback, not named Patrick Mahomes.
Well, even he has some bad
And
games.
even he has some bad games. Like we saw it against the Jets. We saw it against when they played the Lions. There are some other games in there too, but everyone's going to have those moments. So the only thing I see is Jared Goff is getting a little bit older. Let's see how old he is. Jared Goff
He was drafted
he's
in
29.
16.
He's 29. He's going to be 30 next year, so he's still in the
That's
prime of his career,
yeah.
especially for quarterback terms. So I mean, both the Ravens and the Lions, I think their teams are built just fine to be back to this point next year. But just the simpleness of the NFC being not nearly the conference the AFC is right now.
That's kind of where I stand, and I think the Lions definitely have the tools to continue to improve. They have 4 picks in the top 100 in this upcoming draft. They
That's
have
huge.
$51 million in cap space for this offseason, and Motor City Dan Campbell is going to be able to recruit some players to continue to come. I mean, they got CJ Gardner Johnson, who is one of the top safeties on the market, to come from Philly, who was in the Super Bowl last year, to Detroit to play in that defense. They got Ben Johnson to come back. The offensive line, for the most part, is good. Weapons, I mean, they could probably get another pass catcher, but like Jameson Williams is coming on strong, and you can never have enough
Yeah, you can
pass
never have
catchers.
too
I don't
many
think.
wide receivers. Just don't tell that
Nope.
to Cam. He'll yell at you.
Yeah, he'll tell you that
You're greedy.
you're greedy, and you have to build it the right way. Is also what I'll say. That you have to build it through the draft.
Sure.
Defense, the defense improved. Like at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of question marks, but they continued to improve throughout the season. Like, yes, they gave up 34 points to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. But for the first half, they gave up seven.
Seven. Yeah.
Seven.
Second half,
So,
obviously, the second half is a whole different story compared to the
yeah.
first half. But
So that first half for the 49ers, I mentioned the tackling wasn't good. I'm watching that Lions defense continue to put pressure on Brock Purdy and that offensive line. The offensive line was not holding up very well. That's why I was saying it was a team issue. Defense, offense. Yes, Brock Purdy was, what was he, 50% at halftime throwing.
yeah, maybe even below. But it was not good.
It was not great. Some missed throws on his end, that some incomplete passes that the receivers couldn't catch, weren't able to, didn't for whatever reason. But the Lions just continued to dominate. I'm pretty sure they scored on. It felt like they were scoring every time they got the ball. They only scored 17 points in that first half, but I think they went back-to-back drives to start the game with a touchdown. I could definitely be wrong, but I feel like they started like 14-0.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, they put up 24 in the first half, so they definitely.
That's what. Yeah, they were up 17.
Yeah, they were up 17. I mean, that offense, no doubt about it. They were smooth like butter in that first half. But that second half, they come out of halftime and the game turned on its head. It all of a sudden it felt like an inexperienced team that hasn't been in the moment before got a little ahead of themselves, and the comeback started. And I'll let you take your victory lap on Brock Purdy. I'm not gonna sit on here and hate all episode. I have my reasons for not liking Brock Purdy, and the people calling him like the next Tom Brady and a bunch of all this other
That's
stuff.
like I said last week. That's ridiculous. The truth lies in the middle.
Yeah, the truth probably does lie in the middle, and for being the Mr. Irrelevant, and he is winning. At the end of the day, none of it matters because you're winning. So it's all, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant. It's a team
difficult
sport.
to win.
It's difficult to win in the NFL. We just talked about it for 30 minutes, and
even when you have the Avengers, and you still have to get the ball to him.
And he does have the Avengers. We're not going to say he doesn't, but
no, I'm definitely not going to say he doesn't, but. You could have
when
Cowboys,
you throw a ball that bounces off a face mask and it goes right into your receiver's hands. I mean,
there's some luck there. I think I saw somebody say like that that was going to be pass interference. They had already thrown the flag on that. But like the Cowboys, think of like early on in Dak's career, like he had a really good team. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had Amari and CD at one point together. I want to. It might have just been CD's rookie year.
It's too bad Drew's not here. He would know this.
I know. But I want to say at one point they had like Zeke, Pollard.
Sure. 18, 19, 20, and 21. Yeah, I think CD was there.
Yeah, CD was
18, 19, 20 and 21. So we had 2 years with Amari and CD Lamb.
And Tony Pollard was there as well. Zeke, even Zeke was starting to fade. They had
rookie Zeke though, rookie explosive Zeke. Yeah,
and that was a crap ton of talent. The point I'm trying to make is that yes, they do have the Avengers. At the end of the day, just because they have the Avengers doesn't mean they're always going to. Just because a team has the Avengers doesn't mean they're always going to win.
Most quarterbacks, if we're being honest with ourselves, most quarterbacks that do well, especially early in their career, usually have very good supporting casts because
Patrick Mahomes had
this is a team sport. Like that is we always forget that, but like
it's a great team sport.
Tom Brady had an amazing defense all those years in the Patriots. Big Ben had an amazing defense his first couple of years in the years he won a Super Bowl. Let me just trying to think off the top of my head some other guys. Eli Manning had great defenses.
Peyton Manning won.
Peyton Manning's Broncos team was defense all the way through. He was obviously having a great year.
Well, the year that they won the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was like he was throwing with his arm had fallen off at that point. It was defense all the way.
The Steelers got robbed of that Super Bowl because of the NFL script, and when AB got given CTE that year.
I still think
I digress.
I'll digress here in a second, but the Jets went 10-6 that year, lose by like 4 against Buffalo, and had we won, we would have made the playoffs. And I'm convinced that had the Jets made the playoffs that year, they would have at least went to the Super Bowl because
the Steelers got in because of that. I think.
Yep, they did. I was rooting for the Browns that week because I needed the Browns to beat the Steelers. Anyways, we both digress on our misery, and let's get back to the original point of all this.
The original point, lots of great quarterbacks have had amazing casts around them. I mean, that's just how it is. And like you said, it's the greatest team sport of all time. So
one player messes up. I mean, it's not like basketball where you could have, Michael Jordan early on in his year, they didn't win, but he 1v5 was still playing very well. LeBron James, he's a one-man wrecking crew. Mm-hmm. Like you put LeBron James on any team, they're immediately looked at as a championship contender. Like just because of LeBron James, it doesn't matter the other 4 that are in the starting lineup, they're going to be looked at as that. If you have a great pitcher, you're probably a great pitcher.
You can go out and win a game. Literally, that pitcher can determine that the other team gets 0 runs, and you can win a game. Granted
Exactly.
that you have the offense to go with it, but yeah, there are different
Football,
games where individual performances can, take you to the next level.
if you have
And
just a goalie, if the goalie is just doing his job and not allowing a single shot to go in, that could determine the game.
mhm.
Or at football, if 10 guys are all doing their job, but the one guy isn't, the right tackle allows the edge rusher to come through. It doesn't matter if the 10 guys did their job to perfection, that one messes up the entire play. That's why it's the greatest team sport.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah,
49ers are a great team.
it's just the funniest argument because we always talk about how great individual players are inside of this world where it is all about the team. I
Yep.
just always look at that and I just chuckle a little bit. But that's the nature of the game. Everyone wants to talk about who's the best at the greatest sport of all time. So
I mean, we do it.
yeah, we
We,
do it.
we, we
do it.
spent the first 15 minutes of this.
We did. We've come full circle. We really
We
have.
really have.
Whatever. It is what
All
it
right,
is.
let's get back to the second half of this game where the 49ers, the turning point for them was the Lions. So George Kittle had said he was making fun of analytics, saying like analytics doesn't take into account momentum. Momentum's a real thing. Anyone that's played a team sport knows how important momentum is. It doesn't matter what analytics tell you, they don't factor in momentum. And the Lions deciding to go for it instead of kicking the field goal in the third quarter, costly. The 49ers scored a touchdown. And then Jahmyr Gibbs fumbles the ball, giving it back to the 49ers, touchdown. Like that right there, the second Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled that ball and the 49ers scored right after, it was a completely different game. The
Mhm.
momentum has shifted.
And that's when immediately all of a sudden the Lions players are like, oh crap, and
Yep.
they completely pull in. I mean, they stopped being the aggressors at that moment, and 49ers started taking it to them,
Yep.
and they ran away with it the rest of the game. And a lot of people are upset about the fourth down call from Dan Campbell to go for it, didn't get it, instead of kicking the field goal and tying the game. I look at it this a couple ways. This is what Dan Campbell has done ever since he's been the head coach of the
Yep.
Lions. And we just talked about the Ravens. Why changing? What got you to this point? And a lot of the Lions fans, they've said, yeah, this is what you've done all year, but you can't do it in that game, in that moment.
Why
Dan
not?
Campbell was just sticking to his guns. He was doing what he's been doing all year. Now, is that the right decision to be doing that all year? You could look at that and say probably not. Just look at a couple of examples in the NFC Championship game, in that Cowboys game. I'm sure it's happened in other games as well where it's come back to bite them. And that's just been the MO for the Lions this entire time. They want to bite kneecaps. They want to go for it. They want to be aggressive. All the power to them. Yeah, so I pose this question to you, Gil. Obviously, Dan Campbell has done a ton for the Lions in his couple seasons there. He's turned that franchise around. He's gotten them to this point. He got them to the NFC Championship. We just talked about how the Lions have the better road to get back to this point. Is Dan Campbell the guy for the job, knowing that's how he coaches the game and that's how he will always coach the game?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. I have a lot of faith in Dan Campbell, and a lot of people, yeah, hindsight's 2020.
Always
If
is.
here's the thing on those play calls. If Josh Reynolds catches the ball, we're having a different
Right.
conversation.
Right.
If Josh Reynolds catches the ball, we're having a different conversation. And there was some stats. Anthony Bellino, who does a lot of stuff here in the Toledo area, he tweeted out. He got this from somebody else, but the Lions were 15 to 20, so 75% at converting fourth and 3 or fewer in the regular season. That's also 2 for 2 in the postseason.
That's pretty good.
So that's a really good average.
That's pretty good.
Their kicker. Now, this is my biggest takeaway from this. I'll get that on in a second. But their kicker, Michael Badgley, I don't know how to say that. 9 of 20, so 45% in his career from 48 plus yards. Worst among high volume kickers in NFL history. So my takeaway from that is they need a new kicker.
Yeah.
Like if you can't trust your kicker, that's the other thing too. I wonder is They just don't trust their kicker.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. They went with the option that I worked 75% of the time instead of going with the option that only worked 48% of the time. So
Right.
analytics side with being aggressive in that moment.
Analytics never say to kick though. They always
No.
every time the analytics thing comes up, it says go for it. I think
Yeah,
I've seen it
I'd
once this
be
year where it
interested
says
to
kick.
see. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what Computer Cowboy tweeted out for that decision.
I have no idea. But yeah,
But
I mean, I
yeah,
still
I
Dan
mean
Campbell's a
he's
guy.
already their second kicker that they've had this year. I think they had Riley Patterson in the beginning, and then they switched to
I think
Badgley or
so.
Bagley or whatever in the middle of the
They'll
year.
they'll go out and get a kicker, but what that tells you, if you're a player for Dan Campbell and they're going for it that often, that's your coach is telling you that he believes in you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
He's letting the players go out and make it
yeah,
happen. He's letting them. He's putting the ball in their hands.
and
He's not
that's
living in his fears. One of Tomlin's favorite sayings, even though he does it all the time. He's given the power to the players, and I think you're right on that. That uh, he can
Yeah,
do.
I
Oh,
agree. The
and we
Steelers are
got
going to be
Drew
terrible
here.
next year.
Oh boy, welcome,
oh,
Drew.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Fantastic take. Steelers falling off a cliff.
yo, out of
Drew with
nowhere.
a heck of an entrance. But before we pass it over to Drew, I do want to say that people are irritated with Dan Campbell because he went for it and they failed in the NFC Championship game. They don't get to the NFC Championship game if he's not aggressive. His aggressiveness is what got them there in the first place. So, like you've been saying, why back it down now? Like we had mentioned with the Ravens, they kind of went away. The Lions stuck to their guns. It failed. It sucks when it fails. But that's who they are. They are the aggressive team. That's their MO. And of course I believe in Dan Campbell. I don't he made the wrong decision. Drew has said this a couple different times. At the end of the day, only one team is going to be happy at the end of the year anyways, because only one team gets to win the Super Bowl. 31 coaches end up looking back at the decisions they've made. And it's like, man, I should have done this differently. Should have done that differently. And it sucks when they happen in these moments. But because he made that decision in that moment, does that mean that Dan Campbell's not the right guy? No, of course not. He's still the right guy for the job. He's done what he's done for the team to get them to the NFC Championship game speaks volumes to what he's capable of. And one mistake, or that mistake in that spot, should not define him, because he's still a great coach and he's built a solid roster.
I don't think it comes down to the decision. It's all results oriented, and whether he would have, if he would have chose to go for the kick and then they missed the kick, it would have been a bad decision by Dan Campbell. So it's not about
Jake Moody
the
missed a kick early in the game. Jake Moody for the 49ers had missed a kick. Yeah. So kickers can miss.
It's not about the decision. It's about the results. So it's hard. It's easy to hate on him because it didn't work. But
those are the ones that stand out. But like the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble, the not tackling in the second half, like those were more costly than not getting the fourth down conversion at the end of the day, because that's what allowed the 49ers to get back into the game after being up 17 points.
Right.
Drew, all right, now that you're here, what are your thoughts on this NFC Championship game?
The Lions performed much better than I had expected. I thought they would be completely overmatched. They were not. Not until the second half. That was kind of the story of the Lions all season. They would come out, put up a bunch of points, and then let the other team come back. A lot of times they found a way to win in the end, but when you're playing against a team like the 49ers, you can't do that. You just can't do that. And part of what I said about the fourth downs decisions is, yes, that's their thing. But when you're playing a team like the 49ers, you can't make a mistake. And they made an abundance of mistakes, and that's ultimately why they lost. It's not necessarily just the one fourth down conversion at the end that they didn't get. It's that plus they had another one right before that they didn't get. The fumble you had mentioned, some bad drops. Just you can't have those things when you're playing against an elite team like the 49ers. And they had it in their grasp, and it slipped away. I just want to mention one thing I heard today. I didn't fact check it, but I'm pretty sure, when I heard it, it sounds right. So the Lions are the only team who have been a team every year in the Super Bowl era that have not made it to a Super Bowl.
That sounds. Had the Browns?
That doesn't feel right.
Browns were not a team for a period of time.
Oh yeah,
The Super Bowl era when the Browns were.
because the Browns relocated to be the Ravens.
Oh, that's true. That's true. They relocate. That's
Yes.
true.
So
Got me there.
they were not a team every year of the Super Bowl era.
It seems like a very specific. That seems like a very specific stat, but
It is.
It's probably
It's a
correct.
stat.
It is probably correct.
Let's see. The
So-
Super Bowl.
Because your other team, your other teams, they just haven't been around long enough. Like your Texans and your Jaguars and other things.
Yeah, well, I think the only team that's been around as long as the Lions that hasn't won a Super Bowl is probably the Cardinals. The
They've
rest of them
obviously
are relatively new, but the Cardinals have been.
The Titans
Lions
are
are
the
the only team that
Oilers, but they went obviously.
Yeah. Let's see. AFL. Oh shoot.
Crazy. While he's looking that
I
up,
believe
we talked a lot about the Lions and the 49ers for a little bit. We're on minute 49 just to get you up to speed here, Drew. But
Wow.
we also talked a lot on Chiefs Ravens. If you wanted to add anything, we talked a lot about basically the Chiefs' greatness and the Ravens' lack of, and the fact that this was the Ravens' kind of best opportunity in a long time, and they did not take advantage. So, and Mahomes' greatness continues to reign even more.
Yeah, and on the Mahomes thing, there's a lot of people that choose to hate on him, which is fine. When you're at the top, you're going to have a lot of haters. I, for one, am not. I've said this many times. I started off as a Mahomes hater when he was first new into the league and having a lot of success, because same thing with Brock Purdy and all these other quarterbacks. You get this hype, and it's like, all right, let's take it down a notch. Let's relax a little bit, and that's how it was for Mahomes for a while. Well, we're 6 years in. He's made 4 Super Bowls in 6 AFC Championship games. It's past the point of being well deserved now, and yeah, it's still annoying listening to the broadcasters freak out about every little thing he does. But a lot of the times, it is a pretty good play. So I don't know. I think it's easier to just embrace and appreciate the talent and skill that we're seeing on the field in front of us. I know a lot of people did that with Brady. I will admit I chose not to, and still don't. Well, I take that back. I acknowledge he was a really, really, really great quarterback, and probably still, for now, the best quarterback to ever play.
I wrote an entire college paper on how he was not the greatest quarterback of all time and was being carried by Bill Belichick.
Well,
Yeah.
You'd be correct. So I hope
Well, are we sure about that? Are we sure? Because
yes, I'm sure. I'm positive.
Because Bill Belichick has done nothing, and he lost his job since Tom Brady has left. So.
Well, Bill Belichick couldn't just up and move to another super team in waiting that just needed a coach like Tom Brady did with the Bucs. That team was pretty stacked, other than quarterback. Anyways,
yeah.
What was I saying?
Mahomes, everybody, people want to bring him down.
He's on his way. He's on his way to being the best quarterback of all time. The only problem is same thing with Jordan LeBron, is you're going to have rings on one side and then what your eyes are seeing right now, and maybe
he might make the ring thing irrelevant.
Just block everything.
He might make it irrelevant.
He could. I think it's going to be hard for him to, one, play as long as Brady did, just because that takes a lot mentally. And he's making his contract now is for $500 million. So, one, it's going to be a lot hard for him to play that long. Two, I think the league is as competitive as it's been in a long time. We're seeing teams go from top 5 picks to playoff teams often now. It seems like every year one of those teams turns around. So the competitive level, in my opinion, is never been higher. So it will be difficult. Yeah, and all the young quarterbacks and talent that are in the AFC. It's going to be tough. So, but it makes it even as impressive at what he's doing right now, being able to make it to all these Super Bowls. And like we mentioned all the time, winning a Super Bowl is hard. Making it to a Super Bowl is hard.
We've
He's done it 4 times.
Yeah.
He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
Insane. So,
yeah, we harped on that a lot at the beginning of the episode. We probably spent, I don't know, like 15 minutes just talking about
people
Mahomes
forget.
greatness.
I'll remind them again. People forget.
They might have forgot by the time they get to this part what we talked about in the beginning. But overall, yeah.
Lamar, I agree with you as well. I'll touch on that a little bit. This seemed like their time, and again, another team that we talked about throughout the season, especially myself. Like they started off, I was like, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. They come out, they smoke the Lions. They, later on the season, they make Brock Purdy look like a 7th round pick, and it really started to shape up and look like, okay, this might be it. And I think a lot of Ravens fans, I'm not going to say that I know a lot of Ravens fans, but I imagine they were thinking, they finally get a healthy Lamar Jackson. They finally get a new offensive coordinator. They finally get, a receiver in Zay Flowers, home AFC championship game. Their defense is playing really well, still was in the game in the second half.
They held that great man to only 17 points. They did their job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just the pieces were there. And at the beginning of the game, and that crazy play Lamar had to Zay Flowers for their first touchdown, I think it was. I was like, all right, this is gonna be a game, and Lamar looks really good. And that's MVP Lamar right there. And just complete and utter collapse by the Ravens. And like you mentioned, the defense did their job. Offense couldn't do anything. Unfortunately, same thing with my Cowboys. I'm not avoiding any conversations about that, not pointing fingers necessarily, but when stuff like that happens, especially on the offensive side, it's hard not to look at the quarterback and say, hey, what did you do to avoid this? What could you have done to better put your team in a better position? And he didn't do it. And this was probably the year that should have been the year that they did it. I mean, we already mentioned the Chiefs and how this is like the worst Chiefs team since Mahomes has been a starter, and they still came out and beat the Ravens with a suspect wide receiver core. I will still keep harping on that, but
that's like
it's hard to see. It's hard to see where the Ravens go from here. I mean, they're probably going to be.
You just got to run it back because they're going to be in the playoffs next year. It's not like they're going anywhere. Obviously, the AFC is stacked, and not to rehash a lot of stuff we've already talked about, but it just goes back to it's really hard to win in the NFL. So when you have an AFC home championship game against a team that you should win against, you gotta do it. There's no other excuse. And when you don't, it's just disappointment. So
yeah.
Another fun stat I heard. Every quarterback that has won the MVP has made it to the Super Bowl. Except for Lamar.
Well,
he's about to win his second.
Make it 2 for 2 that he has not done that.
So not necessarily in the same year, just at some point, if they won the MVP, they made a Super Bowl as well.
I thought it was the same year. I was like, that was a little more specific, but
that makes more sense because Aaron Rodgers has won the Super Bowl like 4 times and only made 1 Super Bowl, but that makes more sense.
Well, then, yeah, we got you.
So I propose this question to Dillon. I'm going to ask you, Drew. Who, out of these 2 teams that lost, which team has a better chance of making it back to the championship game? The AFC or NFC championship? The Ravens or the Lions? Which team has a better chance of making it back, do you think?
I think the Ravens. I think just looking at the first of all, the Ravens' pedigree, they're always in the playoffs. Even when Pro Bowler Huntley has to come in, they still manage to make the playoffs.
Good Lord.
The schedule they faced and the way that they were winning games throughout the season. The only game that left you with questions was the last one, and obviously that's bad, really bad timing. But it's not like they didn't play any good teams throughout the year. I mean, I already mentioned they demolished the Lions, who was the other team in question. Looked really dominant against the 49ers, who are going to be in the Super Bowl. So that they had really good wins throughout the year. It's just you got to get one of those to happen in the right week of the year. And if everyone knew how to do that, then I don't know, winning Super Bowls would be easy. But the Lions, even though they get Ben Johnson back, their path to the Super Bowl was pretty soft, which is very disappointing.
But what's to say it won't be next year?
It could be, but it's unlikely. I don't. If we're choosing which thing is replicable, is it lucking into an easy playoff path, or is it being good enough to beat good teams? And you already proved that you were last year. I think that is more replicable. Obviously, the Lions were good. They beat the Chiefs week 1, whatever that counts for. So, but like I mentioned, I just think that what the Ravens did this year is more repeatable for next season.
I like that. Dillon and I both said
it's a contrary. Yeah, it's a contrary viewpoint. So yeah, you'll have to listen to what we harped on earlier in the episode there.
Let's finish up talking about this NFC Championship game. I do want to take my victory lap on Brock Purdy here because that second half was chef's kiss. He was throwing dots. Was there some luck to Ayuk? Yes. I'm not going to take that away from Ayuk. I'm not going to take that away from you haters for a second. But the one thing I don't think gets talked about enough with Brock Purdy is his mobility being an upgrade over like Jimmy Garoppolo, who Jimmy Garoppolo was a statue back there. His mobility, especially here in the playoffs, has really taken off. Like he's been able to move around the pocket, make some plays. He had a couple big runs that were huge, setting up. He had a big run that set up a Christian McCaffrey touchdown. So in his second year, he's doing this in the NFC Championship game. I know he's got the Avengers around him, yada, 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 but still damn near impressive. That second half was very fun to watch as somebody who loves Brock Purdy. The one play to Kyle Juszczyk where he escaped the pocket, he had to completely flip his hips because, I mean, it's difficult to throw on the left side if you're a right-handed quarterback. Yeah, Kyle Juszczyk was open.
Not if you're a baseball player. It's fine.
Whatever. Still difficult to do when you're running. Got to flip the hips real quick, and then you got to unleash it. That was a beautiful pass. Had a couple other nice ones to Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, good Kittle. Good second half for Brock Purdy, and if he wins Super Bowl MVP, I'm definitely going to be taking another victory lap because it's going to be a fun offseason.
I told him he could do this, by the way, Drew. Don't worry. I told him he could do the victory lap. I gave my 2 cents on the supporting cast and the overhyped nature that is not deserved. But the fact of the matter is that, and we talked about this for probably 20 minutes too, me and Gill, but it's a team sport and the ultimate goal is winning at the team sport. So when you can do that, you're doing your job, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. And we'd love to talk about how great individual players are in the greatest team sport of all time. Yep. So it is what it is.
He allowed me to take the victory lap, so I definitely was going to do it because I was granted that permission.
Fair enough.
But
I mean,
go ahead.
It's I don't know why it's so hard to find common ground between saying, hey, this Mr. Irrelevant pick has been really impressive. He's made 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. when I don't know if, any Mr. Irrelevant pick has ever even started meaningful snaps.
No.
So on one hand, yes, super impressive. He's playing very well. On the other hand, let's relax.
He's not Joe Montana.
He's not carrying some poor team that could not make the playoffs without him to the.
He's not Cavaliers
NFC
LeBron. He's not Cavaliers LeBron.
Yeah. So
early caps.
We say this all the time, and maybe this should be our motto, I guess, our slogan now for how often we say it. But it's somewhere in the middle, and people just cannot find their way to the middle for whatever reason.
I said that I was preaching that last week.
I'm one of them. I like to stay on one side or the other.
You guys both do.
It's way more fun.
It's way more fun to say
this guy's the best of all time, or this guy's terrible.
You gotta take a stance, or else you can't argue ever. There's no debate.
That's what some people just hate about me is that I try being like, all right, guys, here's a common ground. Okay, this is the middle. This is where I'm at. I'm a big believer that the truth, there's black, there's white, but I think the truth usually lies somewhere in the gray. That's
I don't see
a big
color.
thing for me. And we're just going to skirt right past that there. Brock like I said last week, I've said this week earlier, Brock Purdy's not Joe Montana. He's not the greatest of all time, but he deserves flowers for being in this spot. He to me looks better than like Jimmy Garoppolo did at a lot of times with this 49ers team. Maybe
Jimmy G was
He was, yes. The stuff I liked after the one interception that Purdy threw when he was getting his hand hit, those tweets or posts, whatever, that's dumb. I still hate that. Where's Sam Darnold? Bring him in. It's not like Sam Darnold was you really, after one interception, you want to throw in a extremely turnover-prone quarterback? Okay, let's see how that rolls.
NFL fans are psychopaths.
The immediate reaction stuff.
They don't know what they're talking about, and that's us included most of the time.
We're very guilty of that.
We're blind. We are blind sheep when it comes to our teams, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. That's just the way it is.
I'm trying to get better at that. But
I'll get to it before we end the show. Anyway, circle back to that. But
do a lap around.
Yeah, we'll do the old reach around. Why don't we do this as we've talked about each game now for probably 30 minutes. Why don't we? Because we're probably going to end up doing a whole Super Bowl preview episode, I'd imagine, in a couple weeks.
Well, next week we're going to do.
We'll do like an awards.
Do our awards episode.
Yep, and then the week after that, I'd imagine will be a Super Bowl recap. It'll be it'll be a Super Bowl preview.
Next week would be Super Bowl preview if we were.
Oh, you're right. So, regardless, where I was going with this was, why don't we just each give our quick, off-rip Super Bowl prediction? Who's going to win and why?
Drew?
Oh, who do I think is going to win? The 49ers. Who do I want to win? The Chiefs. I think the Chiefs do have a chance to beat the 49ers. The Chiefs have a much better defense than the Lions do. Chiefs also have a better head coach than the Lions. It's not taking a shot at Dan Campbell in any way. It's just Andy Reid is one of the best coaches we've seen.
He's that guy.
You have a fantastic quarterback on one side that dominates in the playoffs. He does rise to the occasion.
And then you have Patrick Mahomes.
Stop.
That was good. But I'm going to pretend like you didn't say that. On the other hand, you have the Avengers, which I'm tired of saying. You got the Justice League. Justice League sucks.
Justice League sucks.
Yeah, you got some really good good friends over there that are playing some good football together. They look like and have looked almost all season like the Super Bowl favorites. I'm sure they were for most of the season. I don't know, maybe the Ravens overtook them. I don't think they did, even after the Ravens beat the 49ers.
I thought they did. I know Lamar's
I think briefly,
MVP odds went up, and I think
briefly
like
when they beat 'em.
immediately after the game. I think immediately after the game, the Ravens, but like the next week, it was back to the 49ers.
Anyways, cut it short. I think the 49ers win. Unfortunately, I want the Chiefs to win, and I think they have an opportunity. But if you play the game 10 times, 49ers probably win 6 or 7.
Do you want to go, Dome?
I can, because I'm going to go the opposite route. I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to win. And do I think they're favored? No. Like you said, Drew, if you play the game 10 times, 49ers probably win 6 or 7. But when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, it's hard to envision the 3 or 4 times not happening. The Chiefs have been disrespected and hated on pretty much all year. We've been calling this the worst Chiefs team all year.
We were guilty of that.
And I think it's just hard to go against Mahomes right now. I mean, he's going to be in another Super Bowl. And we said this too while you weren't here yet, Drew. This is the worst Chiefs team that they've had, we think, since Mahomes has been there. Mainly because it's definitely the worst offense they've had. But at the flip side is it's probably the best defense they have, if not pretty darn close, but the best defense they've had. So you get Mahomes with the best defense he's ever had, and that actually does create a pretty big problem for the 49ers. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to do some things to that 49ers defense to put some points on the board, and I think the 49ers offense is going to have some problems with that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs secondary, very strong. Linebackers are strong. D-line is strong. And it just feels like it's one of those things where, on paper, the 49ers are the better team, but this might just be a not good matchup for the 49ers. They just might not match up very well with the strengths and weaknesses of the Chiefs. And it's hard to look at the 49ers and say they have any weaknesses, but it's almost like those Eli Manning Giants teams against the Patriots. Patriots were better. The Giants just matched up very well with that team and were able to take advantage of certain areas. So, and then I'm just going to harp back to the witnessing greatness of Patrick Mahomes, that he is going to he's going to win another one, and the NFL wants Taylor Swift in the script. So it might just happen that way.
Taylor Swift's already there.
Taylor Swift is going to hold the Lombardi Trophy, bro. That's she's going to.
It's going to go when they start passing around. It's going to be Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce, and they're both going to kiss it at the same time.
Oh,
and get married.
Yep, he's going to get down on when he gets a Super Bowl ring. That's what he's going to be like. Will you marry me with that? And then she'll just wear the Super Bowl ring forever.
That's insane.
That'd be wild. It's difficult for me to go against Patrick Mahomes. I've done it a lot this season.
But you're going to do it with Brock Purdy, huh?
It depends. I think the 49ers do win. I'm looking. One thing I was doing over here, I wanted to see how many points the Chiefs are giving up. The first week they lost, they gave up 21. Then it was 9 when they won by giving up only 9, won by giving up 10. One should have lost, but they gave up 20 to the Jets. Should have lost. They gave up 20 to the Vikings and win. Then it was 8, 17, 9, 14 to the Dolphins. They gave up 21 to the Eagles in a loss.
It's a lot of low numbers you're saying right now.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. 17. They gave up 27 to the Packers in a loss. Gave up 20 to the Bills in a loss. 17, 20. They lost that. 17. You get it. They're not giving up a lot of points. If the 49ers are able to get to that 24-point mark, I think they win. Just by how it's looked this season. If you get to 24 points, heck, if you're getting to 20 or more, you have a really good shot at beating the Chiefs. Do they get there? I think they have the talent to do so. I think their skills weapons that they have is better than what the Ravens had. They played the Dolphins in the wild card. I was never really high on them anyways. And whatever, it's the Dolphins. You have Kittle, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have Debo, you have Ayuk, you have a fantastic set of skill weapons around you. As long as they're moving the ball and keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field, they have a chance. And with the run game itself, I think that's going to help keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. I think they scored 24 points or more, and that's going to help the 49ers beat the Chiefs. And it's just difficult for me to see the Chiefs beating the 49ers twice in the Super Bowl. Like a lot of these players that are on the 49ers were there in that loss, like Kittle, like Boza. I think they're going to take that to heart. Kittle himself said, "I will be back." Like there's that clip saying, "I'll be back here." He's back. I think they're going to be able to get that win. The one thing that worries me is the 49ers defense. They looked very vulnerable early in that first half against the Lions. If the Chiefs can strike, and if
don't think Andy Reid's just going to ignore that.
Right, the run game, it was difficult for them to stop the run game early, which the Lions just straight up abandoned. We didn't really talk about that, but they abandoned that in the second half. If the Chiefs stick with the run game, Pacheco, him and his high knee running
stomps.
Like, the run game is going to be a big factor, but I think the 49ers are going to be able to put up enough points to where they'll be able to get the win. That's my prediction a week and a half or so away.
All right. It's pretty good predictions there. 2 for the 49ers, 1 for the Chiefs. Maybe we'll put up a poll on the Twitter at some point, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we should do that.
Any last things to add here to the pod before I guess we wrap up?
Did you want to say anything on your recent edition?
In Art Smith we trust. Yo, I might be Hitler, but I might be Artie Smith.
All right? Yo!
It's all right. It's wide enough. He passed the width test.
I got the hat. I'm the OC right now, and Artie Smith is going to remember how to coach football. This is what I talk about when NFLs
some people are just made to be coordinators. Some people are not meant to. They're not cut out for the head coaching job.
That's fine.
And he was fantastic when he was a coordinator. And the Steelers are like Titans 2.0. Like Kenny is off-brand Ryan Tannehill. Najee is off-brand Derrick Henry. The defense is similar to those Titans defenses. Like, I see a lot of where we're trying to go with this. So
Najee is extreme off-brand Derrick Henry, like Dollar General off-brand.
It does. It's the same. They got the same body type. They are very similar in style. The only difference.
Derrick Henry is fast. Derrick Henry has 85 speed.
That's the difference. Derrick Henry can also take it to the house, whereas Najee cannot. But that's when you put in Jaylen Warren and he'll take it to the house. So, but Steelers got better wide receivers than those Titans teams have potentially. So
you don't have AJ Brown, dude.
Okay, George Pickens is a GOAT. Nonetheless, this is where I talk about like NFL fans are sheep because it hadn't been 30 minutes past since that came out, and I was convincing myself that we were back. So
I called you out on that too.
You immediately sent a GIF of Michael Scott making a. I don't even know what to call that kind of face. Yeah, disgusting.
Well, when I sent the tweet that said that they were interviewing him, he sent the GIF of like somebody throwing up.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
After the interview.
But then I did some research.
Been hired yet.
But then I did some research. That's it. Okay, listen. If we get Titans Arthur Smith, we're fine. We're set. We're going to be okay. If we get Falcons Arthur Smith, we're screwed. All right? That's all there is to it. So
all right.
I'm going to be making
that in the offseason.
I'm going to be making a reaction video to go up the day after this video goes up. So stay tuned for that.
Speaking of other things to stay tuned, I don't have an exact date yet, but at some point, the series of Just Misfortunes will be released on YouTube. I'm planning on getting that out here sooner rather than later. I got
Can't
a lot
wait.
of things to speak about. So that series will start on YouTube at Party Chat Sports at some point. Make sure you're staying tuned to the feed at Party Chat Sports. We'll probably try getting some other TikToks on there. Make sure you go watch the ones if you haven't already, or go watch the other videos that you may not have watched yet, like the Houston Texans YouTube video. Keep up to date with everything we got going on at Party Chat Sports on our Twitter or X. Again, all at Party Chat Sports. Any last thoughts?
What
No.
another disappointing season.
Facts,
love
honestly.
football. It's
Who wanted the freaking Chiefs and 49ers?
Nobody. Like, unless you're in the state of Northern California, Kansas, or Missouri. Nobody else wanted this. So it's unfortunate.
Is what it is.
How weird that San Francisco is NorCal, by the way. I know it kind of is, but
It's like
it
the
doesn't feel
southernmost spot of NorCal. It's like you can't go any more south, but it's fine.
California
Anyways.
geography just confuses me in
It's a
general.
very long
Like, I always
state.
get confused on like where some of those cities are, like San Diego. I know that's very south, but Sacramento, San Francisco, and then like it's a completely different state once you get up to like
west.
actual
Just all
North
west
Cal.
over there. It's
Yeah,
its own,
whatever.
its own country.
That's why we're not geographers. We're just here to talk sports because we don't know crap about geography. Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, however you're continuing to get your content. Again, make sure you stay tuned to the feed at Party Chat Sports. Until next time, we'll be back next week with our awards episodes. Hope you stay tuned for that. But until then, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the Pro Bowl.
Goodbye.